All right, it's the basketball show. We're live after Alabama's win over Vanderbilt here inside Coleman Coliseum. Taylor Corn, the Jim Dunaway midweek game here. Snow in South Alabama. No travel problems here in Tuscaloosa. Vandy got in town okay, and they'll be able to get back to Nashville okay after the Alabama win.
With an L.
With an L. Send them out with an L. I guess the big storyline, we start with the two leading scorers. Let's go Aden Holloway first. I mean, he put on a show starting in the first half.
Yes, he did. He was very impressive in the first half. I believe he shot 100%. I think he was 6 of 6 from the field in the first 20 minutes of the game, and I felt like he was the heartbeat of Alabama's offense.
Yeah, his rotation didn't miss in the first half. Played a little defense as well. Had a block shot.
Yeah. What? I was sitting right underneath it, and it happened. So I was hoping that I got it on video because I was like, Aden Holloway, a block shot. What is going on? That felt like a very drunk game.
Yeah, it did at times. That's a good way to say it.
Very drunk game.
Yeah. Go home, Vandy. This game's been drunk. But drive safely.
Yeah.
It was Nick Kelly of AL.com tweeted out. I'll trust his research. It was Aden Holloway's second career block. He had one when he was at Auburn against Baylor, and that's it. Not known as a guy who blocks a lot of shots, but he had a steal tonight, and he did a little bit of everything. And he is a guy, Taylor, that we've watched all season long. Just find a little bit more comfort, a little bit more, settling into this offense a little bit more.
Yeah, what game was it? I believe it was a game or two ago that he had a career high 25,
right?
If that's correct. And tonight he had 22. I mean, he was reliable. He was trusty at times when they really needed it in the first half, when no one else, other players kind of seemed to be in a little bit of a rut. And he kept them afloat during those times.
Yeah, we'll get to the other guy in a second, but Holloway in the first half, 6 of 6 from the floor. That included 2 threes, 16 points into intermission. Sears had 10 at the half. And then, he comes out, he gets 6 more in the second half, plays a little defense, gets a steal and a transition that was labeled here on the big screen as the play of the night, where Holloway gets the steal at one end, brings it up, dishes it to Sears, who quickly gets it over to Youngblood. And that 3 ended up being the insert sponsor here, play of the game on the big screen here at Coleman Coliseum. We'll get to your comments and everything. But the other guy that had a big night was Mo Dioubate. He had 22 points and 10 rebounds. And when he comes off the bench, there's an energy about this guy.
Yeah, there is. And I'm wondering, I can probably pull it up real quick, but I'm wondering what the bench points were, because that's 44 points off the bench for Alabama there.
Yeah, and I think one other person had 8. I think Youngblood had 8 off the bench. So 50 of their 103, I think, were bench points.
And how many games have they scored 100 plus this game? And the crazy thing is they
seem to fall out of bed and hit 100.
Yes, because at times I was like, okay, they have 88 points right now, and they don't seem to be shooting great.
Yeah, they didn't really shoot a lot of threes either. They shot 34 at Rupp Arena, but they were so aggressive at the rim, did such a good job with a size advantage a lot of the times. And that was one observation I heard you make in the first half, is that just at times the 5 that Vandy would put on the court didn't look like the most athletic bunch.
No, and we talked at halftime about the fact that 4 days ago, 5 days ago, 3 days ago, however many days ago Saturday was, that this team beat Tennessee.
Yeah, physical, big Tennessee.
Right,
big, fast
which is
Tennessee.
Shocking to me.
Yeah, I agree. Let's run through some of the comments here. We're at Coleman Coliseum. We're live post-game. If you have something else, drop it in anytime you want. Ethan jumps in with a big roll tide and a hey, Jim and Taylor. Thank you, Ethan, for being with us. Landmine Believers, same story all year. Get a big lead, stop playing defense. Glad to see we flipped the switch back on last 3 or 4 minutes of the game. I could see his lips moving. You could actually hear Nate Oats. Just in a very PG-13 way, explain to us what was happening courtside tonight.
A lot of profanities. He was very unhappy. He was very unhappy with the officiating at times. He was very unhappy with Grant Nelson at times. He was very unhappy with Aden Holloway at times. He was livid, and I would not want to be a player walking into practice tomorrow.
Well, he said after practice yesterday, he was late for the news conference, and he basically was saying, I am not going to let them slip back in to where they were before they came into this building a week ago and lost to Ole Miss. And he extended practice back on Monday to until they got it right. And he has been very hard on Phylon. here lately. And Philon tonight, 2 of 10 shooting, 0 of 4, ended up with 5 points, 3 turnovers. Right now, LeBaron Philon is doing this right here, and you look at the same NBA draft boards I do.
Yeah.
That's not the scouting report on Philon.
No, and he's been electric to start the season. I mean, we were here, a couple of back-to-back games, and after every game, when we're driving home, I always was saying, LeBaron Philon. I love watching him play. He's electric. And I hate to make this comparison because I'm sure it's going to frustrate some people in the chat, but this is a little bit of what we saw with Aden last season at Auburn. He had a very, very strong start to the season. He was hitting shots. He was very effective. And then he kind of hit a little bit of a slump.
Yeah.
And he's obviously outgrown that and is not having that issue right now. But I feel like I see a little bit of a similarity between the two in terms of production throughout the season.
What Aden did last year, hit that freshman wall, and then what Philon is going through right now. Richard says, Nelson still seems off. Looks like he's getting frustrated with his own play that led to the flagrant. Richard, I'll tell you, he had 25 and absolutely was the glue guy in the win at Rupp Arena. He was fantastic. But here tonight, you saw a little bit of it at Rupp Arena. He has developed, and this was one of the cussing rants that you got from Nate tonight. He is developing a habit with his offhand when he's dribbling of throwing it. Let me demonstrate it closer to the camera. Of throwing it into a defender that if it's timed right, is causing a foul, and it's starting to get called. You don't see a lot of charge calls anymore, but you've seen a couple of them on Grant Nelson the last couple of days. And when he was making his move, he had that free offhand again swinging. He caught the kid in the face, and it was upgraded to a flagrant 1. I mean, that's and Nate, twice it happened tonight. He lectured him about, it's your offhand, dude. You got to get that under control.
And when he was talking, because I could hear what he was saying, you've got to stop doing this. So it seems like something that's been a reoccurring conversation.
It's a habit. It's like a bad something on the golf course. You develop a habit, or if you're shooting a shot, it's going to be a habit. That offhand can be absolutely a habit as well. Tesla Talk says Alabama must improve their defense if they want to make a run in March. Defense wins championship. Any sport, defense wins championship. They are better. They were into, what was the number Brown threw out earlier today on the show? Was it 46, 49, somewhere in the 40s on Ken Palm on defensive efficiency. So it is light years better than when it was last year. And they play really good defense at time. Everyone's popular guy in the chat, Jaron Stevenson, is unbelievable defensively. You guys don't like scoring that at home. Mo Dioubate is NBA level defensively when he's on the floor.
43rd Nelson, defensive efficiency.
43rd updated there, 43rd. Nelson is really good defensively. I mean, you have some guys who are playing their ass off. Mark's improved defensively. But then occasionally you will have lapses in the defense. It's a fluid game. It's not like football where you can go out and throw shutouts. There are going to be some scoring, but that team on this night probably shouldn't have scored 87. That team tonight probably should have scored, with their skill set in this building, probably should have scored 70. Should have been a 103-70 game. Because
they went through spurts. I mean, they were either hot or cold. There was no in between. They were hitting back-to-back threes or they were missing layups.
Daniel complimenting Aden there. 6 100-point game this year. We've talked about this before. Nate Oats takes pride in hitting that 100-point mark. When it was 99, I felt like if needed, he would call a timeout and set up a play to get to 100. I think it's that important to him.
Well, there was a stat that I read earlier this afternoon. They lead the country, I think, since the beginning of last season, counting all of last season, and then up to 19 games this season now. I think they have 16 games where they have scored 100-plus points, and they lead the country. The 16 number might be a little off, but I know that they lead the country in straight number of 100-point games, 100-plus point games.
Landmine Believer, again, back from the SEC Network broadcast tonight, talking about the 12th top 100 net win for Alabama right now, highest in the country. Go back on our social media platform at Next Round Live before our weekend games. This would have been the end of last week. Taylor laid out for you the quad 1 games left. No quad 3s, I don't think, for anybody in the SEC. and very few quad 2s. Quad 1s seem to be everywhere available, and that translates to all top 100 games as well in the SEC. The schedule is going to start blend. It's going to be a blender. It's going to start feeding on itself with all the metrics.
Yeah, and I'll update that after maybe the midweek games heading into the weekend. I'll update it. But there were only a few teams. I think there were 2 or 3 teams that might have had one quad 1 or quad 3 game, and I think it was South Carolina if they were playing South Carolina at home. But again, those numbers change. The net rankings change all throughout the season. So, right now you could have 10 quad 1 games remaining, and some of those could drop, and then some of the quad 2 or maybe quad 3 games could bump up.
Robert says, I missed the game. Can I get cliff notes? Absolutely. Alabama came out wearing home whites. A little more. You want faster? You want the cliff note version? Early on, Grant Nelson, and this is something to keep an eye on. He got his first foul within the first 90 seconds. He got his second foul at 8:13 in the contest, and then set the rest of the first half. And Grant ended up tonight with only 10 points. He didn't have the same game he had at Rupp Arena. And Robert, I know you're probably joking about the cliff notes, but he didn't have the same game, I think, because of the early fouls. I think Grant Nelson, when he doesn't get into foul trouble, and that was something he had trouble with last year, it impacts him on both ends of the floor. If his defense isn't there, if he gets an early foul, I think that impacts him when he gets to the offensive side.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I find very interesting is watching players react after, they either commit a foul, miss a shot, or whatever, just because I think that will tell you a lot about what kind of player you're watching, the maturity, not necessarily the age, but their maturity, their mental, how easily they can override some sort of mental block. And he did seem to be getting very frustrated with himself because, like you said earlier, I think a lot of the things that Nate was getting on to him about, he knew that he needed to stop doing that, and he knew that
That's right.
He was going to be screamed at. But it's like you said, it's almost a bad habit, and it takes time to break habits.
Michael says what happened to Cliff when he was grabbing his chest. It was this side of his chest. It was at the 10:27 point of the first half. This side of the chest over here.
Okay,
He was
thank
grabbing
you for the
as he was
visual.
walking off. In that area, as I grab my chest, you can have it could be a rib, it could be a pec, it could be a little tweak in the shoulder. He was doing this chicken wing motion while the trainer was walking him down the hallway right here to my right as I watched him. They went back, they did some stretching, and he already wears some you play
like
sports.
A sleeve brace type thing.
It's that tape that sort of
I know
that
what you're talking
sort of
about.
keeps it stretched out for you.
Yeah.
So he's already dealing with a little bit of his shoulder. It was tweaked, but he did come back in the game in the first half. Only was out back in the tunnel for about 2 TV timeouts, about 8 minutes, and shouldn't be any problem going forward. Speaking of injuries, no Darion Reed again tonight, the McDonald's All-American. If it was for the national championship, I was told he could have played tonight, but they're going to play it very cautious until he's back to 100%, something Nate has indicated on our show a couple of times this year. Auburn fans checking in on an off night tonight. What do you think, by the way, about an early bye week? We had Stephen Pearl on the show, but it's not really a bye week, but having an early no midweek game this early in the SEC season for the Auburn Tigers.
I think because of the circumstances, it's going to be beneficial for them because they want to get Janai back as quickly as possible. So they've played 2 full games without him, the end of the South Carolina game. But I think that it is beneficial to them right now simply due to injury.
Right.
So because of that, it might be fine. It might be helpful, but
no practice at all today. They gave him basically a couple of days off to rest and get healthy, because when you come back from an early, as Stephen pointed out on our show today, and you can get it podcasted everywhere, as you play an early, sort of bye, a night off. Yeah. That means you don't have another one.
Right. So I think it's a double-edged sword, or I think that's the correct term right there. But
I will allow it. Yes.
It's because it's going to be beneficial due to the health of the team. But then, later on down the road, you have a lot of basketball games to play. So you might be wishing that you had another one come the end of conference play.
Yeah. Brad's not happy with the defense, I guess, or just the style, or maybe he is happy. Not worried about the defense. I'll score them all. Worked last year. Final Four. You know,
Yeah.
there's math and
Yeah, I'm
all that
looking at
stuff.
the banner right there.
Joey says you got to play defense. I will tell you, Nate Oats takes great pride in defense. For those of you that thinks he's only about the offense, it really is all about. I would say he coaches up defense more than he coaches up offense.
I am reading someone, and I meant to look this up before we started, but the free throws. Whew. I don't know how many were missed. I'm about to look, but for a hot second there, that was, let's see, 67%. And I think they're averaging 70% right now for the season. But I can't remember who said that, or I would give you credit. But that is an issue. Someone said in their free throws will lose a game. That's can be concerning at the end of, when a game comes down to the wire.
Well, it's why they won at Kentucky. They shot the free throws so well. At Kentucky, that would have been a difference if they had their normal shooting night. They'd have lost that game at Kentucky. They had a good shooting night, but Mark Sears, who's so good at shooting free throws tonight, had a flagrant foul. He got 2 shots with nobody at the line, and then 2 for the shooting foul. So he goes up there, he misses back-to-back free throws, and then he misses the next one. So 3 straight free throws he missed, and then the crowd started standing up and clapping before his 4th free throw.
Yes, that's I made note of this because I wanted to bring it up actually, and I don't know which assistant it was, but after he missed the first one of the assistants was literally standing up on the bench telling him, like, you're fine, don't get in your own head, you've got this, you're fine. After the second one, he did the same thing. It's dead silent in here, and then after the third one, he does the same thing, and then I think people started to take a little bit of notice, and he basically got a standing ovation, as in the fans, the crowd is saying, we're behind you.
You can do it.
Don't worry about it. You're fine.
Yeah.
Just make this next one.
And he did. Yep. And the crowd went crazy. But I'll post. I took a video of it, and I haven't had time since we hopped on here right when the game ended. But I'll post the video on the Next Round Twitter later. Yeah. That's not a shot. Don't be an asshole. It was everybody is quiet.
Yeah, everyone's home arena is quiet
when the home team's shooting free throws. I will say this: Mark Sears, career-wise, passed a milestone tonight as well. 2,500.
I was about to say 25,000 career points.
That would have been a milestone too.
And no one would ever beat it. 2,500 career points. And was he the second?
Oh, I don't know that
player. I caught the middle of the sentence when they were announcing it. Someone that was listening on TV might have heard it on the broadcast, but I think that there are a very, select few players that have reached that milestone. So that was big. And he got another standing ovation for that. Yeah.
2,500 as he does that, and Alabama wins it. So they're back here 7:30 with throwback uniforms. They'll be in crimson at home on Saturday night with LSU 7:30 at the same time. Taylor will be down at Auburn Neville Arena for the 7:30 Auburn Tennessee contest. And then we will be here on the platform with post-game reaction from both places coming up this Saturday night. Don't forget, we'll have another recorded version of our podcast, The Basketball Show, that'll be ready for you on Friday morning as you get ready for the weekend of basketball. But from a cold night here in Coleman Coliseum, that's going to do it for us here. Alabama gets the win. Final thought will be on Bracketology, which came out today. Joe Lunardi put out a new Bracketology today. Your side of the state. Number 1 overall
House
seed.
Divided. Yeah. And I'm very interested to see how this plays out because, Auburn hasn't lost a conference game yet, but I'm fully expecting it to come. To who? I don't know. But no one is going to walk away from conference play without a few losses. So I'm just wondering who those losses will come to, how, quote unquote, bad of a loss they'll be, and how that will impact how they're projected to be seeded come March.
Yeah. And then Alabama, by the way, in Joe Lunardi's Bracketology today, also on the 1 line. So it's the possibility of Auburn being the overall 1 seed. Alabama could be the 1 seed. Bracketology could have both of them on the 1 line when they play here in this building on February 15th. Don't know if right now Auburn's one in the AP poll, unanimous, right? First time in history.
First time in history.
And Alabama stayed 4th. In between them is Duke and Iowa State. I don't know if Duke and Iowa State could get out of the way so that when they play here on February 15th, that we could end up having 1 versus 2 in this building, which I think would be the first time ever. I'm old, as Stephen Pearl reminds me all the time.
I would just assume.
I'm just going to assume that 1 and 2 have never played each other in this building before. So good times ahead, man. And here we are midway through January now. It's going too fast, I think.
It is. It is. But we still have, they're 6 games. Alabama just played their 6th conference game. So we still have 12 more.
12 more, yeah.
Conference games. And then we have the SEC tournament. And then we have the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
So we've still got a lot. We've still got a long road ahead of us.
The good stuff. Yeah. There goes Morgan back to Kentucky. See you, Morgan. Yeah. On his way back to Kentucky, Elizabethtown tonight. How would you like to have a nice little, what would that be? 2, 4. How would you like to have a nice 7-hour drive in front of you right now?
I'd probably cry. To be completely honest, I would probably start crying right now.
If I was driving, you would
be asleep the whole way.
You'd take a nap. Yeah, don't blame me. All right, that's it. That's the basketball show post-game. Alabama winner 103-87. Dioubate and Holloway with 22 each. Sears did have a cool 21 and 7 assists tonight, so it wasn't like he didn't score a lot. But we talk about Mark Sears all the time. A little love for Dioubate and Holloway tonight on a winning night for Tuscaloosa. She's Taylor Corn. I'm Jim Dunaway. Goodbye, everybody, and we'll see you soon.